Hello. My name is Charles Webster Bear. Today is June 28, 2022, and I'm in Redmond, Oregon, USA. Today I want to talk about history of the universe. So the universe began with the Big Bang 14.5 billion years ago. It was either created by something or it always existed, and 14.5 billion years ago it was too small for humans to comprehend. Either way, at the Big Bang 14.5 billion years ago, the universe was either created or it got big enough for humans to comprehend. And it kept growing as a plasma of dark matter and dark energy. And as it continued to expand, it cooled and formed quantum particles like photons and leptons and gluons and borons and bosons, et cetera, et cetera. And as this continued to expand and cool, it formed subatomic particles like electrons and atoms, electrons and neutrons and protons. And as this energy plasma continued to expand and cool very rapidly, it formed hydrogen atoms. And these hydrogen atoms continued to expand throughout the universe and cool, and then gravity acted upon them and brought them together in clouds and continued to bring them together. And then the friction was so great inside them that they formed stars. And the universe today is still expanding, and it's expanding and it's creating more stars and galaxies. And the expansion is actually increasing in speed. And 5 billion years ago, in the Milky Way galaxy, the sun and earth were created, and the solar system, or 4.5 billion years ago. And then uh, the crust cooled and gases escaped and formed the oceans. And then life was created, bacteria, uh, some kind of chemical reaction, probably by a volcanic vent. And there were lots of chemical reactions and stuff, and life was created, bacteria, and bacteria reproduced and evolved into plants, which used photosynthesis to create oxygen, which formed the atmosphere. And the plants continued to reproduce, and these genetic mutations that occurred within them led to them evolving and changing and better adapting and improving, and they turned into fish. So animals are basically plants that eat plants. So they turned in animals are basically cannibal plants. Anyway, fish evolved into reptiles, which evolved into mammals, which evolved into monkeys, which evolved into apes, which evolved into humans. So uh, emerged, and this became the dominant species of animal on the planet for lots of reasons. We walk on two legs. We have hands. We have large brains. So we're able to survive in all environments and we can work together. So about 100,000 years ago, we got out of Africa, and then by about 10,000 years ago, we had colonized the entire planet, and started making language and customs and traditions and cultures and societies and laws, started farming, domesticating animals, creating civilizations, governments. And then, but 2,500 years ago in Greece, they formed democracy and philosophy and the foundation for Western civilization, which still stands today. And at the same time, 2,500 years ago in India, a guy named Buddha created the soul. And Buddha was a philosopher, and he figured out that the only thing you know is that your thoughts exist. You don't know anything else. Everything else is just an assumption. And so Buddha said, well, if the universe exists, that's great. It probably does. We assume it does. However, if it does not exist, then you are the soul, singular soul. So Buddha said, if the universe does not exist, then you are the soul, which is something that's not part of the universe because the universe doesn't exist. However, the universe probably does exist. We assume it exists, and that's what we should do. But it might not, and if it doesn't, then you are the soul. Soul singular, one soul. So that's Buddha's philosophy. I believe it to be the correct philosophy. And that moved to the East, where the Chinese were civilized and sophisticated and intelligent enough to understand it, and they created Buddhism. It also moved to the West, to Jerusalem, where they were not as sophisticated or advanced as the Chinese, and they misinterpreted it twice. The first time they misinterpreted it was Christianity, and the second time they misinterpreted it was Islam. And the misinterpretation was souls plural. That's not it. The universe either exists and we all exist, which is probable, or the universe does not exist and you are the soul. There's no souls plural, it's souls singular. So that mistake occurred in Jerusalem and later on in Saudi Arabia. And so religion is basically incorrect. And there's a lot of people out there who have not got the memo on that. Um, so anyway, um, so then the Romans picked up on what the Greeks were doing, and they started to head north to the rest of Europe, and gradually they incorporated Christianity into that. And then now that Europe was organized by a single entity, the Roman Empire, Europe was able to work together, and they created technology and the Industrial Revolution and the Renaissance and all this good stuff. And then it turned into a real estate grab, globally speaking. And England and Portugal and Spain did the majority of this real estate grab because they were good sailors, because they lived by the sea. And Then in America, we created freedom of speech, freedom of the press, democracy, all this good stuff. And then there were two wars. And then in the 50s, we had nuclear weapons. So there was a lot of peace and prosperity. And then the hippies came on, and the hippies were smart, and they said, "Hey, we are depopulationists, which means we think there's too many people on the planet Earth, and that's bad. And we think that the number of people on the planet should be decreasing, so we don't kill the planet. Because right now, with the number of people on the planet increasing, that's a suicide course, and we're going to kill the Earth with overpopulation. And we're depopulationists, so we believe that every woman should only have one child. People should only reproduce once or zero times. And that way we can get the human population back down to where it should be, which is a sustainable level, which is 1 or 2 billion people. And then we can live happily ever after as the enlightened beings that we think we are. So that was the correct thing to say, and it was the correct thing to do. The problem is the Chinese did it in 1980, but nobody else did it. Now, when the Chinese did it in 1980, that was a sign for the rest of the planet to do it. But the rest of the planet was too stupid to do it, and too greedy to do it, and too insane to do it, and too evil to do it. So the rest of the planet didn't do it. And now we've got a situation where the planet is either dead or dying. And bad scene, and it's only going to get worse. And that's depopulationism. You see, depopulationists are the solution, and everybody else is the problem. I became a depopulationist in 1985 when I was 16 years old. And I spent my life telling people about this, and nobody really has listened to me. Nobody really cares. So it's a drag, you know? It's a drag. Human beings aren't smart enough to survive on this planet. Human beings are too stupid to survive on this planet. If human beings were smart enough to survive on this planet, we'd be depopulationists, and it would be illegal for people to reproduce more than once. And then we could save the planet and live on it happily ever after. But that's not what happened. We wrote history, and we wrote it incorrectly. Depopulation means it's illegal for any human being in the solar system to reproduce a second time for the next few centuries. Because the only way we can save the planet is to create a decline in the human population and then allow the human population on Earth to continue to decline until it reaches a sustainable level, which is a number for future generations to determine. But I'll go ahead and guess it's probably around 2 or 3 billion. So that's depopulationism. That's what we need now. That's what we have to have now. That's what we have to have globally now. This is the job of the United Nations. The United Nations is not Terry Fund has not done its job because it's stupid. So this is the job of smart people and educators and schools and universities, but nobody's doing their job because everybody's an idiot. So I have to do all this all myself, and it's a lot to ask one person, frankly. But I'm not complaining. I don't have a problem doing it all myself. It's just it takes a little bit longer. I've been at it for almost 40 years. Been a good 40 years, but the progress has been a little bit on the slow side. Anyway, that's depopulationism. Depopulationism is the religion of this millennium. Depopulationism is the goal. Now, to achieve that goal, I created a world government in the year 2000 in Portland, Oregon, called Global Internet Government. And global internet government is going to unite the planet Earth peacefully and soon by uniting everybody with freedom and democracy and transparency and reproductive rights. Reproductive rights means that every human being on earth has the right to total and free access to all forms of birth control, including abortion and birth control education. So, reproductive rights means that everybody, everywhere, has total free access to all forms of birth control, including abortion and birth control education. That's reproductive rights. Any government that does not completely and totally support reproductive rights is an illegitimate government and will be replaced quickly and peacefully by global internet government. Also, every government has to be totally transparent with all its financial transactions. Otherwise, it's illegitimate and it'll be replaced quickly and peacefully by global internet government. Yeah, I can talk more about that later. But anyway, um, so the human race is hopefully going to continue to survive, even though we're working very hard and we're working very successfully in making this planet uninhabitable for human beings. Hopefully, the human race survives and goes on to continue to survive peacefully, like in Star Trek. And then eventually, over millions and millions of years, we will evolve into different kinds of life forms. And over billions and billions of years, we will evolve into robots and computers. And then robots and computers will go colonize the galaxies and the universe. And then the sun will explode in 4 billion years. And that is history. That's what history is. And that's also the future, hopefully. But right now, we have to do our part and clean up this mess that we made. And so that's what we need to do now. And that's what we will do. So let's uh let's talk about me. My name is Charles Webster Bear. And I am in Redmond, Oregon, USA. I'm running for mayor of Redmond this year. Please vote for me. Thank you. I'm a libertarian, less government, more freedom. I'm also a depopulationist, which means I believe that it's illegal for anyone on the planet Earth to reproduce a second time for the next few centuries. So if I'm elected, I will move forward with that agenda as quickly as possible because it's time for Oregonians to lead the rest of the world. It's time for Oregonians to save the planet. It's time for Oregonians to lead by example. It's time for us to stand up and say, hey, we're going to do it right. And you can too. And this is how. So please vote for me. I'm also running for president of the United States in 24 and 28. Please vote for me. Thank you. I'm I'm 53. I'm single. I'm straight. I'm Buddhist. I'm depopulationist. I'm a libertarian. I've got no kids, no wife, no ex-wife. Um, I was born and raised in Santa Cruz, California. I went to high school in Newport, Rhode Island. I graduated from the University of Hawaii at Hilo on the Big Island in 1994, and I moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico in 1995, and I moved to Portland, Oregon in 1999, and in the year 2000, I created Global Internet Government. And in the year 2007, I moved to Bend, Oregon, and in the year 2014, I moved to China for 3 years to teach English, and then in the year 2019, I created a cyber currency called Fogbank, and I moved to Redmond. And if I'm elected mayor and or president, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a cyber currency for the Oregon state government called Cash, which will be 100% transparent, owned entirely by the Oregon state government, and it'll be available to all human beings all the time, and it'll be a cryptocurrency. And more about that later. I'll do the same thing with the online voting system. More on that later. And yeah, I've got a lot of good ideas that I want to implement into my government. Um, so that's me. That's depopulationism. That's the history of the universe. And yeah, 23 minutes. That was pretty quick. Pretty quick. I probably left a few things out, but that's okay. I'll be making more of these in the future. Thank you for watching. Have a great day and adios.